Welcome to the Leaderish podcast with your hosts, Regina and Doris. Hey, Doris. How's it going?
Hey, Regina. It's going very well. How are you?
I'm doing great as usual. Just excited to be chatting with you today around nonprofit board leadership. And can I just give my spoiler alert now?
Yes, of course. I'm so excited for you.
Okay, so I have just today been asked to join a board. So I still have to talk to the president of the board, and I'm really excited about it. It's a organization that I have been volunteering and a member of for some time now. I've been on the committee, and now they are asking me to step up into a board position. So this conversation could not be more timely, and I am super excited about the opportunity.
You should be. Being on a board is exciting. It is a great way for everyone. All of our listeners should be on boards. You'll probably notice the passion as I talk about board leadership and how you can take advantage of that knowledge, what you learn on a nonprofit board to be a better leader in your corporate role. And we're going to talk about that for the next half hour or so. And I've been on boards for 27 years, forever. I've been on, and I was trying to think this morning if there was a time when I wasn't on a board. And I think there have been little tiny periods of maybe a year here or there, but really the last almost 30 years, nonstop, I have been on one board or another board.
What are some of the boards you've served on? Where did you start?
Well, I started with Toastmasters, and I was a founder of the Franklin, Tennessee Toastmasters. And the first day that I attended a meeting, someone that I knew very well, a friend of mine that I worked with, he was a part of another Toastmasters club, and he was trying to form one in Franklin, Tennessee. And so I attended that one Saturday mornings, 7:30 a.m., and he said, okay, we need you not only to be a member, but we would like you to be the secretary of the board. And that was 27 years ago. And I was a terrible secretary. I never took any notes, but
Is that part of the job description for the secretary on a board?
You are supposed to take notes, yes. The secretary of the board is someone that is supposed to take notes, and you take notes at meetings, and of course you take notes at the board meetings, and then you share those notes with the appropriate audience. And that's what you're supposed to do. But I never did that as the secretary. So I was a terrible secretary, but I still learned a little bit more about that particular board. And I grew, I took on a VP role. And then eventually I was the president of that Toastmasters club. And that was the beginning of my board leadership. And I learned so much from that board. When you are a leader of a board, the members of the organization and the members of the board don't report to you like a corporate role. You have to have a servant leadership mindset, and you're leading everyone around you from a volunteer basis. You're inspiring them. You're encouraging them through your leadership to try to get them to serve whatever role that they have. So the president probably should have inspired me to be a better secretary and reminded me that I needed to take notes. But when you're the VP of Education for Toastmasters, for example, you're responsible for helping every one of the members figure out where do they want to be from an education standpoint, and then help them grow that goal that they have for themselves. So every role on a board is going to be a little different. And you started to ask me what are the different types of boards. So there are community boards like a Toastmasters or an HOA. Yes, I'm also on the board of my HOA. I'm not sure how good of an idea that is, but I love my community. I love my neighborhood. I want it to be a great neighborhood. So I ran for that board, and I'm on the HOA board. Then there are professional boards like CPCU, which is an insurance board. And I know the board that you're getting ready to join is a training board. So there are professional boards, the things that you're passionate about as in your corporate role, there are probably board roles that are available to you to join and then grow not only you as a corporate employee, but as a leader. And then, of course, there are charity boards. So if you are passionate about a nonprofit, I am on the Red Cross board. And I've previously been on the Boys and Girls Club of Hollywood when I lived in California. And those nonprofit boards are very different than a community board or a professional board. So we can talk about all three of those types of boards. We can even talk about for-profit or corporate boards. I've never been on one of those, but that's another animal.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of people start off on one of these community, professional, charity boards, right? One of those three. And those are mostly volunteer board positions.
Yes.
And once you get really good at that and you gain your reps there, then I do hear of folks where they put together their community or charity boards with their corporate knowledge, and then they get paid positions on corporate boards.
Yeah, that is ultimately the goal, is to be elected onto a corporate board where you make an income from doing that. And it's a pretty healthy income depending on the board.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're advising a corporation, you're advising a CEO and helping to make those decisions for the organization that will benefit the shareholders. So a little bit different than what we do for community, professional, or charity boards. And today we're really talking about the nonprofits, right? We're talking about the non-corporate boards and how do you get your start on boards. Before we dive into that, what are some of the benefits for serving on a board? What would you as an individual say that you get out of serving on boards?
There are three parts of it. There's personal development, community impact, and building your leadership skills. So the personal development, how do you personally want to grow, and where are your passions, and how can you take those passions and serve on that community board? The community impact. So if I care about the Red Cross, for example, I joined that board because I believe fully in the 5 lines of service of the Red Cross. And so as a board member, I can impact the community. I can inspire people to donate more blood. I can inspire people to volunteer for a disaster. I can inspire people to maybe take a CPR class. And hopefully I can inspire people to write a check and donate money to the Red Cross. Those are all parts of a nonprofit board that are important. And it's really where your passions are and the impact that you can make on the community, and at the same time building your leadership skills. And I will say one other thing, I did this for a year, and I think I was the oldest person in the room, but for our younger listeners, you might look into Junior League. Junior League is a great place to learn how to be on a board, and part of the assignment is to eventually join a board as a Junior League member. You may or may not continue on that board, but it's a great experience. You learn how to be a part of a community, and there are Junior League organizations all over the country. And as I said, it's more for the younger audience. It's not that you can't join the Junior League as somebody, let's say, in your 40s, but I certainly felt like I was the oldest person in the room. There were a lot of the younger ladies that maybe had just graduated from college, so they were in their mid-20s, late 20s. But it's a great place to start if you're not sure what to do, and they can help guide you in the right direction and fulfill your passions.
Oh, I love that. You know, I've volunteered for Junior League, so I've gone in and done some of the teaching in schools and stuff like that, and that's always been really fun to do. But I had, even when I was younger, had never considered joining the Junior League. It's just been like volunteering through my organization. So I had no idea. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Okay, so as I think about this role and this volunteer opportunity to be on a board, what might some of the challenges be that I might run up against that I need to start thinking about now before I say yes?
I would say the biggest challenge is time commitment. When you join a board, you are volunteering your time. And depending on the type of board that you're on, that time can be just a few hours a week to, it could almost feel sometimes like a part-time job. So it depends on the amount of commitment that you're willing to make. And there are some boards you may join, and it may just be an hour a month. So it really depends on which board you join and the expectation that the leadership of that board, so the president. So when you talk to the president of the organization, that would be one question I would ask is, what is the time commitment expected of me as a board member that I take on? And so depending on how much time you have left over, so if you have a 40-hour or 50-hour a week work week, and you have a family that you have commitments to, you have children that you have to serve, you may not have that much time. So you've really got to consider that.
Okay.
The just balancing perspective, what is your being able to still fulfill all of your roles in the corporate environment, and then being a good board member and being able to fulfill all of those commitments. And the other challenge is just accountability. Someone is counting on you. So if you are taking on the role, I'll go back to my secretary, someone's counting on me to be a good secretary and I didn't do a very good job, they probably shouldn't have allowed me to continue, but I did a better job as the vice president of membership or education or the various roles. And once I took on that president role, that is a whole nother time commitment that you have to think about. Because the president role, you're leading other people. And you might think, well, the president gets to delegate everything. Yes, they can delegate, but you're still responsible for the overall success of that organization as the president of that board. So those are all things to consider.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. Thank you for that. I'm not sure that I would have asked the questions about the time commitment, and maybe because I've served on the committee, I do kind of know what it takes. So that's helpful, that it's not like I'm going in completely blind. And who knows, maybe they have other people that they are looking at as well, and it's not just me. So
before I want to say something real quick.
Yeah.
That you just mentioned that you were on the committee, and I think that's a great place to start too. If you are not 100% committed to all of those challenges that I just listed, and you're worried about the time commitment, you're worried about officially joining a board, there are a lot of boards that have committees, and those committees need volunteers. And so that would be a really good place to start. Even I'll go back to the Red Cross. We have, I think, 6 or 7 different committees. The board members are the heads of those committees, but they need volunteers to be a part of that committee. So if you can't fully commit to boardship, you could join a committee. And that's what you've done. You've started on the committee. That gives you a good understanding of what the commitments are for that committee. And soon you'll learn what the commitments are for the board. But you've already dived into the shallow end of the pool.
That's right.
Now you're going to move a little deeper into the deep end of the pool.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. And I know that the first time that I had a conversation with ATD Nashville, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for a board position, but I'm happy to be on a committee. Mm-hmm. And what I'm really passionate about is membership and making people feel welcome when they join, or trying to help people make the decision to join. Those are things that I love to do. So I think being part of the membership committee would be great. And now to have this opportunity to potentially lead the membership committee in an interim or even a long-term situation would be great for me to now take that passion and that skill level one step further, now that I understand a little bit more about the organization and a little bit more about what they're looking for in membership.
Great.
So you have 20, did you say 25 years of experience on boards? You were on that board for Toastmasters 25 years ago as the crappy secretary?
As the crappy secretary 27 years ago.
So I'm sure in 27 years and, starting out as a crappy secretary, you've learned a lot of really good lessons. Are there a few that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I think the most important lesson, and I shared this earlier, is that you are working with volunteers on a board. So all the nonprofit boards, these are all volunteers that are also taking their time. So the person that was leading you when you were a committee member, think about how they were leading you. How was this person leading you? And hopefully they were treating you as the wonderful volunteer that you were and not making demands on you, because you can't ask for people to do more than they can take on. And it can be frustrating sometimes, especially as you move up in that leadership role. And if you are the president of an organization or of a board, and you have these expectations, you've set goals for the organization. And those goals, if it's a charity, the goals may be revenue related. You might have fundraising goals. If it is more of a community, it could be things like, for a Toastmasters, for example, you want X number of people to give a certain number of speeches, or taking on certain leadership requirements. And you have to inspire them, and you can't make demands of them. So you have to lead through inspiration, and you have to lead through the goals that perhaps they have set for themselves in terms of the success that they want to see in the organization. So with ATD and membership, you are probably going to have a goal that the group as a whole, the board as a whole, has said, okay, we want to add, let's say, 5 new members. I'm just making up something. We want to add 5 new members to our ATD organization in the fiscal year 2025 through 2026. And you need to figure out, how are you going to do that? So, and it's not a job that you need to do by yourself. It is something that you are working with all the other committee members. So you're going to probably want to bring someone else on to your committee. If you're leading the committee, you're going to want to bring 2 or 3 or 4 other people onto the committee to help you fulfill those goals. And it's the same with the other committees out there, the other roles. What are the very specific roles and goals that you have for that committee and for that overall board? And then inspire the other board members to lead in that direction, and inspire the members to also fulfill those roles. And so it's a big moving machine as you think about it. And each board is just going to be a little bit different in terms of how it looks at the goals that it's set for itself, and who can influence those goals, who can be successful at hitting those goals. So every nonprofit is just a little bit different on how it does that.
Oh, well, I love that. And there's so many different options out there for boards. So how do you identify the right board for you? How do you figure out what folks you go talk to? How do you even get on that board once you've identified that this is an organization that you'd like to support at a board level?
Well, the first thing is you need to figure out, where are you passionate? What passions do you have? What meetings have you attended? Or where have you volunteered? So maybe you're not even on a committee, you have just simply volunteered. And I'll just use the Red Cross, which is a great example. Maybe you volunteered at a blood drive and you just checked people in. That's the only thing you did. You sat in front of a computer, you checked people in. But as you're sitting there, you realize, oh, I really like this organization. I think I want to do a little bit more with this organization. There's probably somebody there from leadership, from Red Cross leadership, that you can talk to. Say, what can I do beyond checking people in at a blood drive? And they can probably take you to the next step of volunteering a little bit more. And then the next step, volunteering a little bit more. And usually what happens is leadership recognizes, hey, there's a great volunteer. We should ask that volunteer to be on a committee. And then you're on the committee, you serve on the committee, and leadership recognizes this is a great committee member. We need to ask this committee member to join the board. Then you join the board, and then the head of the board, the president of the board, usually recognizes, okay, this is a great board member. We need to elevate this board member and set this person up to take over the presidency or the board chairmanship when that time comes around. And so usually the leadership of the organization or the leadership of the board recognizes a really inspiring person that has worked his or her way up the chain of command and eventually will take over that board chair or board president role.
Okay, so here's what I heard. This isn't something that you just leap into. This is something that you baby steps into. You start with giving your time generously to the organization that aligns with your values and your passions. And then you can either ask for more, or someone may ask you for a little bit more to do the next thing.
Yes.
You continue to do those next things, which go from volunteering to committee to board member to president, so that you can grow your knowledge and experience and exposure of the organization to get to wherever you want to be. And not everyone has to want to be the board president. Maybe you just want to serve on committees because that aligns with your passion and your values, and you're getting more experience within that organization. If you want to get additional leadership experience, then becoming a board member is probably a great way to go. But it's not a thing that just happens tomorrow. You don't just say, I want to be a board member, and then all of a sudden you're a board member. You start by volunteering. You start by dedicating your time to where your values and your passions align.
Yeah. And a lot of times you start just by attending a meeting. And by that meeting, it could be a networking organization, and you are just attending that meeting. And then that grows to joining that organization, and then going on a committee, and then joining the board. So again, it's what are you passionate about?
Yeah.
And there's something that you're passionate about. If you have small children, if you have that, there could be something from at a school, a PTA. That would be another organization that you could join to learn about leadership. If you know someone that has suffered from a disease and you are passionate about finding a cure for that disease. So breast cancer would be an example. I lost my mom to breast cancer, and I've done a number of things from a volunteer perspective that relates to breast cancer. I've attended walks, and that could have led to more joining a committee and doing more with an organization like Susan G. Komen, for example. All I've done for them so far is going on walks. I don't necessarily have a desire to be on their board, but if I was more passionate about that leadership and wanting to make an impact, that would be another organization I could consider.
I kind of talked about like the normal path, but there is this like weird path that you took. You attended a meeting and they said, can you join and also be a board member? So there was that. Also, I know one of our board members on ATD moved to Nashville, joined ATD, and they're like, you want to be a board member? Because they had a vacancy. And she was like, yeah, okay. So that doesn't always happen. That is kind of a one-off situation. I think for me, what has worked is getting to know the organization, volunteering my time, and growing that way into the board position. But I think for some people and in some situations, board may reach out to you and say, hey, can you join our board? Even though maybe you're not a member yet, or you're just joining, like in your Toastmasters example. So I think there's kind of two ways that it can happen. I wouldn't be discouraged, though, if a board doesn't just call you up and be like, hey, Regina, we don't know you and you don't know us, but we want you to be on our board. Like, that's just not going to happen.
No. Yeah. And going back to that original Toastmasters board that I joined, the person that asked me to join, he knew me.
Yeah.
I didn't just walk in off the street and they said, hey, join the board. This was someone that knew me, knew what I was capable of, and certainly thought I could be at least a slightly better secretary than I was. But I became very passionate about that organization. I went into, not only did I grow in the board, I took advantage of multiple leadership opportunities within Toastmasters and continued to grow in both my speaking ability and my leadership ability to eventually earn a designation, the Distinguished Toastmaster designation within Toastmasters. So you can set goals for yourself that align with those passions that you have.
That's right.
And every organization is going to have different goals, and your role is really to find which one you are most passionate about.
Well, here's a few things that I heard from you that were important to me in this conversation. and or maybe I've inferred some of these things too. The starting with like the smaller boards, getting to know the organization before you just dive into a board position, I think is something that was important for me here. I know that I have been learning since the moment I joined the committee, or actually even since I joined the association, and I want to continue to learn and grow. And I think the third thing that I've learned is that I do bring skills and experience. And so bringing those skills and experience to the board is helpful for them, but also for me. And then to continue to grow based on what the board needs from me and the organization as a whole. So if I can kind of keep those things in mind. And I think the other thing, I'm going to add one more thing to that just dawned on me, making sure that I understand the time commitment and I manage those boundaries well. I have a business to run, of course, and I have 2 children and I have a dog that is very needy. So, and a husband too. All of these things that I can't donate all of my time. So making sure that we're doing the most important things that will make the biggest impact on the organization and be able to make those decisions and keep those boundaries within the time commitment that I agree to.
Yeah, and you said something really important about the expertise. So all of us have a different expertise that we can bring to a board. For example, if you are a really good accountant or you're good with finances, just about every board has a treasurer. If you are good with numbers, there's a good chance someone will ask you to be the treasurer of that board. And it's one of those roles that very few of us, I don't think I've ever been the treasurer of a board. And I don't mind numbers, but I really don't want to be the treasurer. I want to do other things. I want to be involved in membership or education, but not the treasurer. But if you are good with finances, you're probably going to be asked to be the treasurer for a year or 2 of that board. Yeah. So that expertise that you bring is really important. And once someone recognizes that expertise, that's when they're going to tap you on the shoulder and ask you to come on the board. And the other thing that people will recognize is energy. What type of energy? So if you are someone that sits in the corner of the room and doesn't really want to get involved and you just want to learn and then you'd leave, you're probably never going to get tapped on the shoulder to join a committee, join a board. So show your energy. Be excited about being there and be passionate about that organization. And there's a good chance someone will tap you on the shoulder because just about every board is always looking for new board members or to replace board members that might be resigning after a year or 2. So a lot of those board positions are 1-year positions. There are some boards where you can stay on for 3 or 4 or 6 years, but a lot of times you need to find the president changes every year. So there's always succession planning within that board, and that president is looking for the next president.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the vice presidents. Right. And many boards, they already have that aligned up. They know, okay, this person is going to take on the president role, and you work your way up to that president role. But show your passion. If you want to be on a board, show that you're excited and interested, and don't just sit in the corner.
I want to add to that too, because I think it's okay for you to talk to a board member and say, I'm interested in serving on the board. I think it's okay for you to put yourself out there too. Like, you don't have to just wait for someone to tap you on the shoulder, because that doesn't always happen. And they may not have seen you or noticed you until you speak to someone. So never stay quiet, even though you're showing your enthusiasm. Never just sit back and hope that someone's going to tap you on the shoulder for a board position.
I agree. Yeah.
Put yourself out there, say it, breathe life into it so that they know that you're serious. All right.
Definitely.
This is awesome. Doris, any final thoughts from you before we wrap up?
I said this earlier, encourage everyone to join a board, or at least start with a committee. Find something you're passionate about and learn more about the organization, join a committee, and then join the board. You will not regret your decision. You will continue to learn so much about leadership and how you can be a better corporate leader by the leadership lessons that you learn from a nonprofit board.
I love it. Well, this has been so helpful for me. And thank you for, instead of us having this conversation, just the two of us, thank you for recording it with me, because I think that there's other folks out there that could definitely use this information as they're thinking about what's next for them. So totally just thank you for spending your time to talk about this with me. And I hope that you listening right now, you're thinking about what boards do you want to explore? What organizations do you want to get involved in? How do you want to share some of your time so that you can grow in board positions? And by the way, I will say, when you get work done together, you form relationships. And one of the best way to form deep relationships is through volunteer experiences. When you're doing the work with others on a passion that you are all aligned on. So if you want to build a network, if you want to make some new friends, if you want to have new folks in your circle, then join a board, join a committee, get involved, volunteer your time.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I love that fact. We didn't even talk about relationship building and network building. Absolutely.
Save it for the last. You got to listen to the whole episode to get to the nugget. I'm kidding. There's so many nuggets here to get the final nugget. Yeah, the final nugget. All right. Well, that is about all the time we have for today. Again, thank you, Doris, for sharing your expertise. You can find all of our links in the show notes. You can follow us on this journey, of course, as we delve into all things leadership. We'd love your review, so if you'll take a moment and leave us a 5-star review and a comment, we would be forever grateful to you. And if you have a moment and you found this impactful, or you found an interesting nugget in this episode, we'd love for you to share it with someone. So push that share button, share it with a friend, a family member, someone in your circle, heck, someone outside your circle. Just do it. We love it when you share our episodes. It means a ton to us. Those reviews mean a ton to us. And we are now on YouTube. So you can follow us at Leaderish Podcast on YouTube as well. And you can either listen to every single one of our episodes, there are 52 episodes on YouTube, in audio form only, or you can watch our last 4 or 5 episodes. So if you're interested in being a guest, reach out to us. We'll stalk you a little bit. We'll get together. We'll chat. On that note, cheers, Doris.
Cheers.